When you're ready to start talking, you hit start webinar and I'll sit over here quietly.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna close this real quick.
And they have the ability to enter the room.
As soon as you hit start webinar.
Okay.
You won't have to let people in.
Should I do like a brief introduction of who I am in case they?
You can just say that, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
okay.
new with APA. Yep, absolutely.
Why is, oh shoot, the stop share thing is hiding the, of course, it's blocking the start.
You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, ready?
Mhm.
And this will take up. Yep, there you go. So you're live.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to wait for more people to trickle in, and then we can get started. Alrighty. Well, I know that some people will continue to join, but as it is noon, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jillian Saul. I'm relatively new to APA Virginia staff, but I have really enjoyed working with everyone so far and look forward to continuing. Thank you very much, John, for putting on this presentation, which I'm sure will be very helpful. One path to AICP overview, tips and pointers for earning your AICP certification. I think it will be a really great webinar, and so I hope you all enjoy. Just a quick reminder, this is our website in which you can find chapter announcements, any updates, and other resources. And these are your instructions for this webinar. Just a reminder that we asked you to put all of your questions or comments in the question and answer, the Q&A box, rather than, or I'm sorry, you may put your comments in the chat box, but any questions you would like to pose to John or to others, please put in the Q&A box, as it's easier to keep track of. It's easier to keep track of there. And with that being said, I'm going to let John get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. I will share my screen now. Jillian, do you see that okay?
Yes, that is clear.
Great. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. My name is John Harbin, and as Jillian said, I serve as the Professional Development Officer for the Virginia chapter of the American Planning Association. I would like to first of all welcome to you to this webinar and thank you for your interest in AICP certification. Today we will start with a brief overview of what the American Planning Association is and what AICP certification is and why that's important. We'll then review the process for becoming AICP, known as One Path to AICP, and then go over the key steps of the process, mainly being the AICP exam. From there, we'll review what happens after you become AICP, and then we should hopefully have ample time for questions after that. All right. So what is the American Planning Association, or APA for short? Shortly, it is the professional institute that represents the field of urban planning in the US. Their mission is to create great communities for all And they do that through advancing planning through leadership in education, research, advocacy, and ethical planning practice. They have over 42,000 members from 100 plus countries. So it's not just here in the States. There are 47 chapters throughout the US and 21 divisions that sort of represent and embrace the various topical areas of planning. So the National Association is split into 47 state chapters, like I mentioned. And here in Virginia, we have a very active chapter with over 1,500 practicing planners and other people involved in the planning and design of the Commonwealth's communities. The chapter is governed by a volunteer board that includes myself, along with 10 other elected and numerous other appointed positions. In fact, you may have seen that we recently announced a call for nominations for those 10 elected positions. So if you're interested in becoming more involved with the chapter, I would highly encourage you to reach out to myself or Earl Anderson, who's the past chapter president, or Robert Narvez, who's our vice president of inclusion, to learn more about the positions and opportunities. The chapter is split into sections, as you see here on the map, and that's really to better address the varying needs of planners across the Commonwealth. Each section has a section chair, and they typically organize local events and opportunities for networking, for learning, and for earning certificate maintenance credits for AICP planners, which we'll talk about more later on in this presentation. Okay, so what is AICP certification? AICP stands for the American Institute of Certified Planners, and this is the professional institute of APA. It's the only nationwide independent verification of a planner's qualifications, and certified planners pledge to uphold various high standards of practice, ethics, and professional conduct. They also pledge to keep their skills sharp and up to date through those certificate maintenance credits that I just mentioned. So why should you become AICP certified? There are numerous reasons, but to go over a few of them, AICP demonstrates excellence to your colleagues and employers who will know that you have the academic qualifications, the relevant work experience, and the mastery of skills required to serve your community. It also indicates that you aim high for professional achievement that offers profound and positive impact. It also means you're a leader in the profession. AICP encourages service, and many AICP members serve at need communities pro bono or with their chapters, like I mentioned, on the boards and other appointed positions. Other mentor students and new professionals and assess AICP certification applications as well. It also commits you to ethics. Certified planners are held to a very high standard of ethical practice. The AICP Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct serves three purposes: to define the aspirational principles for all those who participate in the planning process. It defines the rules of practice and behavior to which all members of AICP are held accountable to, and it defines the procedures for enforcement of these rules. AICP also helps to cultivate your career. To put simply, certified planners earn more than non-certified planners. On average, certified planners earn $16,000 annually more than the non-certified counterparts. Certification also puts planners on equal footing with our allied professions like architects, engineers, and others in the planning space. Some additional reasons, like I mentioned, the salary benefits. The most recent salary survey shows that certified planners earn more than their non-certified planners, even when experience and responsibility are factored in. AICP also opens more career opportunities and can enhance a planner's professional credibility. 4 out of 5 AICP members attribute their career advancement to having earned AICP certification. It also helps to get an edge in the job market. It provides employers an assurance of quality of a candidate, almost like a pre-screen. And the majority of planning employers say that AICP certification is a factor when hiring planners. No matter if you're in the private sector or the public sector or just a recent graduate, it is worth having AICP certification. Many in the private sector world want their planning staff to be AICP because it helps them earn contracts when they respond to RFPs. And typically these firms will pay for the exam and dues. In the public sector, it can give you extra points when you're applying for civil service positions. And when government jobs are filled by those civil service exam scores, certification can be a way to stand out among top candidates. It's also been my experience that public sector will often pay for exams and AICP dues. And as recent graduates, AICP certification gives you an edge in the job market early in your career by demonstrating you have the same academic qualifications, skills, and dedication as those who are more experienced. And this is even more so the case with this new process that we will talk about now, known as One Path to AICP. So this process was recently revised for 2022 and streamlined to allow planners who are just recently graduating or maybe still even in school, all the way through seasoned veterans to earn their AICP certification the same way. For someone who's utilized the previous process, I can say that I'm personally very excited about a lot of these changes, and I think you will be too. Okay, so One Path, like I said, is the new process, and this certification brings value to your career, where you work, and the places you serve. The benefits of AICP are vast, and we've covered most of them, but it really is the thing that sets you apart in the job market and gives you an edge and allows you to stay on top of emerging trends. So this is the overview of the path to certification, now known as One Path to AICP. Benefits of this new process, like I mentioned, include one single streamlined path to certification for everyone. Qualified members can begin the path sooner now. Members can begin the path to certification before even earning their experience of whatever that might be, or before completing their degree. It opens the opportunity to have an AICP candidate designation to everyone, which again allows you to distinguish yourself from competitors in the job market. It can be leveraged with your employer. It allows you to complete the certification process sooner, but the steps don't have to be completed in the same cycle. So we'll review each step of this in a greater detail, but these are the 3 main steps, beginning with registering for the certification program and scheduling the exam. After you sit for and pass the exam, you become AICP candidate. And finally, once you provide your education and professional experience, you earn your full AICP credential. There are 2 cycles of this process each year, spring and fall. But please note, you do not have to complete the certification in the same cycle. So as you can see here, we are in the spring cycle, and you are now able to register and find a time to take the exam, which occurs during the month of May. After you receive your official results, then you can apply and provide your education and professional experience probably in the month of July at the earliest, depending on, again, when you receive the official test results. So step 1 is to register and schedule the AICP exam. This is open to all APA members, regardless of their education or experience levels. Members who feel prepared to test can register for an upcoming exam. You might be asking, how do you know when to determine or when you're ready to take the exam? I would recommend that you first review the exam content outline to evaluate your knowledge of those topics. And if you've studied for an ample amount of time leading up to the test, you should be in a good spot. And you certainly would begin studying before you register during the month of April, for example, for the spring cycle. During this process, you confirm understanding of the requirements to become AICP. You also, importantly, agree to abide by the AICP Code of Ethics at this time, and then you schedule the time to actually take the exam, and that can happen online now or in person, depending on your preference for test taking. Step 2 is to sit for and take the exam and hopefully pass it. When you pass the exam, like I said, you become an AICP candidate, and that designation may be used by all passing testers. This is a credential that you can then leverage in the job market and start to include on your signatures, on your LinkedIn pages, resumes, etc. During this time, after you've taken and passed the exam, you must maintain APA membership in order to use that candidate designation. And you will remain a candidate until the required minimum experience is earned, whether that's a few weeks or a few years. Step 3 is to apply for AICP. Members can begin the third and final step in the path after they've graduated and earned the required amount of professional planning experience, which varies depending on the type and level of education, as shown here in the chart, ranging from 2 years with a graduate degree from a PAB school to 8 years without a college degree. This represents the minimum years of experience needed to begin step 3. If you're not familiar, PAB is the Planning Accreditation Board, and they review planning programs at schools and determine if they meet the necessary minimums for accreditation. It should be noted that all graduate planning programs here in Virginia are PAB accredited programs, and you can go to their website to find other programs as well that are accredited. APA National has developed additional assistance in determining what sort of degree qualifies as a non-PAB graduate degree in planning that requires the minimum of 3 years experience. It's linked here in the chart, and it is available on APA's website as well. So qualifications for AICP are submitted in the planning experience assessment. You'll need to provide your education history in section 1, which includes university and program info, degree level, graduation date, and verification of your degree in the form of a copy of your diploma, official transcripts, or a letter from your university confirming graduation. This information is used to determine how much experience you must provide, like we discussed on the last slide. In section 2, you'll provide your employment history, including a detailed summary of your planning responsibilities in each role submitted. You must provide enough employment experience to meet the experience required, or the experience requirements determined by your degree in section 1. After you've quantified your experience in sections 1 and 2, you must qualify it in the experience assessment in section 3. The assessment uses the professional planning criteria for the AICP Commission to evaluate your experience. Notably, this has not changed since this new process was established. There are checklists, and the checklists are meant to be used to holistically show how all of the experience submitted in section 2 satisfies this criteria. The open response fields takes a more micro look at your experience, where you'll be providing a single example from a position in section 2 to respond to each criteria. These typically have a 25 to 100 word maximums, so they're not long and relatively simple to complete. Your submission will be reviewed by experienced AICP planners, and you'll be notified of the outcome about 4 weeks after submission. This assessment is completed online, but there is a planning experience assessment worksheet, which can be accessed and reviewed in advance. So you can complete the checklist and the open response fields well in advance of submitting the actual assessment. And I will note that this is a very significant change since this new process was put in place. Previously, there were essays, which were a rather dreaded part of the certification process. And so this assessment process is or component is was developed to help take the subjectivity out of the essays and provide a more detailed look at your planning experience. So APA National, with this new process in place, has developed eligibility pre-check documents that are there to help answer some of the most common questions received. The planning experience worksheet will help you determine if your experience is eligible and enables members to review the exact criteria that you'll be judged on and prepare responses well in advance, like I mentioned. The interactive experience calculator will help total up the experience you've already earned to help you plan how soon you can begin the experience assessment. And the planning curriculum worksheet will help members with that non-PAB master's degree in planning qualify for the minimum of 3 years of experience. I also highly recommend the AICP certification guide. This is the holy grail on the whole certification process and really should be read cover to cover before starting the process. I think it's about 15 pages or so, so it's not too bad. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual AICP exam. The exam, the structure of it, you have a 3.5-hour testing window where you sit for the exam. During that time, you have 170 multiple choice questions to respond to. Out of those 170 questions, 150 count towards your score, while an additional 20 are trial questions that may be added into future exams. One thing to note is there is no penalty for an incorrect answer. So an educated guess is always better than leaving it blank. I always say your goal should be to pass the exam, not get a perfect score. Every question has the same weight, but obviously some are going to be more difficult than others. The highest score is 75, and a passing score on the exam is a 55, which is approximately 110 correct answers. The average pass rate is around 65%, and that's held true over the last several years during multiple exam iterations as they've kind of refined the questions and added to them. So the AICP is broken up into various categories, and they're listed here, and the videos linked here were recorded in February 2022 by APA National. They cover the 9 major topic areas, each encompassing several categories, and the percentage of questions pertaining to each major topic is indicated here. I highly recommend, if you are preparing to take the exam, to watch each of these videos, as they are almost the gold standard of covering each category. They're still working on the one, administration and management, but that should be coming as well, and that will be posted on the APA website as well. I want to go through what each of these categories represents briefly, because it is important that when you're preparing for the exam that you really have a solid understanding of these categories and what they include, so that you know if you're prepared to take the exam. So the first one is research and assessment methods. This is really looking at conducting research and acquiring knowledge, spatial analysis, community engagement, and other data collection methods. Fundamental planning knowledge is really your history of planning, your foundation of legal principles, your planning theory, your core values of planning, looking at systems, economic, social, natural systems, how technology is used in planning, and the like. That's why you get a lot of this stuff, these first couple categories, when you're in a planning program at school. And so having the ability to take this exam while you're in school or recently after you've graduated really helps, because you'll have that content fresh in your head, hopefully. The next category, communication and interaction, looks at listening, comprehension, and reflection needs and ideas, social justice, outreach strategies, and other sort of communication techniques. The next category, plan and policy development, looks at the planning process, familiarity with state and federal laws, formulating and drafting policies, facilitation, stakeholder and community engagement, and project and plan scoping, and the like. Plan implementation looks at really developing and interpreting rules, regulations, and policies and programs, aligning and activating funding and financing options, and developing strategic partnerships. Administration and management looks at project and program management, internal organization management, mentoring and managing staff, and the like. Leadership looks at leadership in support of plan making, ethical aspects of advocacy, best practices and their application, and comprehensive approaches to complex problem solving and decision making. Areas of practice covers all areas of practice of planning: comprehensive planning, long range, sub-area planning, current planning, resilience planning, transportation planning, hazard mitigation planning, all of those different subsectors of planning. And finally, AICP Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. This looks at the overall responsibility that planners have to the public, responsibility to our clients and employers, responsibility to the planning profession and our colleagues, and responsibility of the planner to uphold AICP rules of conduct, compliance, and administration. It's important to note that the AICP Code of Ethics was actually updated for effective January 2022, but the content of the exam is still based on the Code of Ethics that was valid through December 2021. So when you're studying, make sure you use the previous Code of Ethics. That will change. I'm not sure when, but at some point, the new Code of Ethics will be incorporated into the AICP exam. So one of the common questions that I get is, how much studying do you really need to do for the AICP exam? I generally say somewhere between 80 to 120 hours of studying overall. And that largely depends on how recently you were a student and in planning classes on a daily basis, and what your job consists of day to day. Are you applying planning practices on a daily basis, or are you more here and there sort of thing? So how much are you really in the planning field? When you do study, make sure it's consistent and regular. One kind of tip of advice that I often give is try to carve out your lunch period to take an hour and study for the exam, or even 30 minutes. Then you have a dedicated time every day that you are studying, and that adds up over weeks. And that's a great way to keep you scheduled and working towards that 80 or 120 hour goal. Make a plan to suit your strengths and weaknesses. Like I said, depending on how soon or how recently you've graduated, or how involved you are in day-to-day planning, that's something that you need to make a judgment call on and develop a plan around that. You can also find a partner and kind of help with it. Study groups do form up. They've been virtual of the last few years, which has been actually really helpful to allowing everyone from across the country really participate in them. But if you have a colleague or a friend who's also taking it, it really helps to kind of share that responsibility and hold each other accountable. I recommend probably studying at least 3 months out, and obviously building up as you get closer to the date. I don't recommend cramming. We all do it, but really try to be dedicated and start at least 3 months out. Finally, there are a ton of free resources to help you study that APA National puts out. I've linked it here. Those videos on the exam content outline are a great place to start. There are several study guides. There are other videos and reviews. Planningprep.com is a great resource. And then finally, there are paid resources as well that are very helpful if you're interested in that as well. Okay, so assuming everything goes to plan and you pass the exam, you submit your experience assessment, and you become AICP. What happens then? Well, you have to maintain your APA and AICP dues now. Hopefully that is something your employer will help with. It is based on your salary, so it's a sliding scale, and employers, in my experience, have been willing to help cover those dues. You also are then required to participate in the certification maintenance program. Like I said, when you become AICP certified, you commit to maintaining awareness of the planning field and current trends and topics. And this is how you do that. You are required to earn 32 credits per 2-year reporting period. And there are now 4 required credit categories: ethics, because of the code of ethics, like we discussed, law, equity, and there's now a rotating topic, which for this 2-year reporting period is sustainability and resilience. 1 credit is approximately 1 hour of time. And so about 32 hours of time over that 2-year period. The way you can earn credits are numerous. Virginia and the Virginia chapter and APA National both put on conferences every year with a plethora of credit earning opportunities. The APA Virginia chapter also puts on a symposium every year, which is a 1-day event where you can earn a pretty large heaping of credits as well because of the time. And we also host various other chapter, and like I mentioned before, section events that are sometimes offered with CM credits. And of course, you have this opportunity here. Every month, APA Virginia puts on your hour with APA Virginia, which is a monthly webinar where you can earn CM credits. And there's also the Mid-Atlantic Planning Collaboration webinars, which are both free opportunities to earn credits. All right. That is all I have to present. I want to thank you all for participating in this webinar, and I'll stand by for questions. You may also email me here at pdo@apavirginia.com, and I'll put that email address in the chat box as well. So with that, Jillian, I will stop sharing my screen and stand by for questions.
Alrighty, thank you very much, John. So there are a number of questions here. I will go ahead and start with an anonymous question. Can you take the exam anytime before fulfilling the required years of professional experience?
Yes. And so that is a new change with this one path process. You used to have those 2 or 4 or 8 years of experience prior to sitting for the exam, and now you may sit whenever you feel ready for it.
Alrighty. Does the exam have an expiration date after you pass and gathering educational professional experience?
No. So once you pass the exam, you earn your AICP candidate designation, and you can be an AICP candidate for as long as you'd like. There is no expiration time or date for that candidate designation. So yes, you can earn it, and whether it's 3 weeks or 3 years later, you can then move on to your full AICP designation.
Okay, and where might one find recommended prep materials and practice tests for the AICP exam? I think you touched on this a bit, but if you have anything else.
I would first start at APA's website, planning.org. They list a ton of resources there. And then if that's not enough, reach out to me. I can point you in other directions as well. Like I said, there's numerous free resources. There are some paid ones as well. Plan Edison offers a AICP test prep course, and there's other materials you can purchase if you're so inclined. But I would generally recommend starting out, obviously, with the free stuff, which again is listed on APA's website, planning.org.
Okay, thank you. And another anonymous question, how important are I'm so sorry if I'm getting the jargon wrong, PAS or PAS and planning mag publications in preparing for the test?
Yeah, so that's a great question. They are important. I don't overemphasize those, but they're certainly important to kind of keep abreast of current planning issues and topics which are on the exam. So if you're, just reading kind of the top stories and seeing what's being released from PAS, you should be pretty well prepared. But definitely good to kind of keep your eye on those. And if there's something of interest, obviously you can delve in more, but I don't overemphasize those either.
Okay. Have you discussed in total depth the practice tests available? There was just a couple more questions in regards to that, and I don't know if you had anything else to add for that.
So there are practice tests available on APA's website. There are also practice tests available on a couple websites that I'll put in the chat. And definitely it's worth taking some of the practice tests just to familiarize yourself with the format of questions and kind of how they're asked or presented, but I wouldn't focus on those from a content of the exam perspective, because they're typically a few years old and they're not as up to date as the questions that will be on the exam. So definitely worth taking a look at, but I don't overemphasize just taking a bunch of practice exams when you're studying for the exam.
Alrighty. Another question, can you acquire credits before becoming AICP certified and then apply them to your certification afterwards?
No. So you can only earn CM credits once you become AICP certified.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. This other question seems to have been in response to another one. So I'm lacking a bit of context. But they said, "Is there a way on the opposite end? Have been working in the planning field for about 4 years and no degree, still enrolled. Is there a path to AICP candidacy in that regard?"
Sorry, could you read that one more time?
Sure. This individual has been working in the planning field for 4 years with no degree, still enrolled, and would like to know if there is a path to AICP candidacy in that regard.
Yes. So if you do not have a planning degree, you will need 8 years of planning experience to earn your full AICP designation. However, you can sit for the exam and become AICP candidate at any point in time. So you could take it today or in May, or wait until you've got more years of experience.
Okay. Robert Johnson asks, are there any ways to exempt oneself from portions of the exam, such as via demonstrating competence in topics?
No, you are required to sit for the full exam.
Alrighty, another anonymous question. If the exam is taken prior to fulfilling the required years of professional experience, what would be the next step? Also, if you have a degree that is not specific to planning, can you still proceed with the exam?
Yes. So you may take the exam at any point that you feel prepared to. You do not need any years of experience, or you don't even need to have completed your degree yet, or even have one for that matter. But you do need to become an APA member and abide by the code of ethics and the other things that I discussed. After you successfully sit for and pass the exam, you then become AICP candidate, and you can stay there for as long as you'd like, until you earn the required years of experience based on your level of education, whether that's 2 years or up to 8. Or
Alrighty.
sometimes more if people don't feel like some of their positions have given them the type of planning experience that's necessary, then it may be a few extra years here or there.
Okay, and we actually have a question from Benjamin, who I'm going to, I've allowed him to speak, so you should have that ability now, Benjamin. You are still muted, Benjamin. Let me know if you're having any difficulties in the chat, if for some reason you're unable to speak.
I don't have a question, sorry.
Okay, no worries. The next question, an anonymous question. Do you have any advice for how to approach your employer about helping with funding for the test or APA membership?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would recommend is to talk to them about the benefits that AICP certification provides, not only to you as their employee, but to their organization as a whole. Just the level of professionality, competence, knowledge of planning, all of that. And it provides kind of more credibility to the work that's done. So I would tout the benefits. You may even, ask for some sort of cost sharing, or, a lot of times employers will often pay for the first testing fee. And if you don't pass the first time, then the second one is on you, sort of thing. That's pretty common. And I would also address it in your, in your reviews of performance, and when you're setting goals for yourself in the coming years. Be sure to put AICP as part of that, to give you a little bit more of a ground to stand on when you do ask for that support for registering for the exam and then submitting the experience assessment.
Okay, and before I get to the last question that we have in the Q&A box as of right now, I just want to remind everyone that you do have the ability to raise your hand using the raise hand feature, to ask for permission to be unmuted, or you can ask for that permission in the chat box as well. So this question is also related to cost. If you fail the exam, will it cost the same amount to retest?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll just wait a couple moments here. If anybody has any additional questions, now is the time. And as we wait, I do just want to remind everyone, as mentioned in the chat, this is being recorded. It will be posted on our chapter's YouTube page. The link is in the chat, as all of our past webinars are. And just another reminder for our call for nominations. The last day is April 29th. As John said, he is open to answering questions in regards to that. And please submit all nominations to Earl Anderson, our past president, and our current vice president of inclusion, Robert Navarez. Their emails are also in the chat.
So Jillian, I see another question here that's come in. Does experience expire? No. And I would suggest you use the interactive experience calculator, which I just sent a link to, which allows you to kind of enter in your various jobs and roles and determine if you have those number of years of experience. But yes, it can occur whether it's a job you're currently in or a job 5 or 10 or 15 years ago, whatever it might be. Then I see another question: does holding a GIS position, GIS analyst, count toward professional experience for the certification? So oftentimes positions like this would count, would partially count towards your years of experience required. If you're only doing maybe 50% of your workload is considered planning related or planning work, then 50% of your time in that position would count towards your years of experience required. So it's hard to say just based on the job title, but you'd have to look at what qualifies as planning experience, which is in the planning experience assessment, and that will guide you through that kind of calculation as to how much of that role would count towards those minimum years of experience.
Alrighty, and just another reminder in case we have more questions coming in before we close. I will be sending out a follow-up email with all of the presentation materials and links to our website and YouTube pages that may be of help.
Great.
John, do you have any other closing remarks? If there are no.
No, I think I just thank everyone for their interest in this webinar and becoming AICP. Again, if you have any questions, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to assist in whatever way I can.
Thank you very much, John. I think it was really informative. And thank you, everybody, for joining. All righty. Have a good one.
Thank you.